Everyone knows Amazon killed Toys R Us. It's been repeated so many times it feels like fact. There's only one problem. It isn't true. Toys R Us had years to build its own e-commerce platform. It had the brand recognition, the supplier relationships, the store footprint. What it didn't have, what it was structurally prevented from having, was money. And the reason it had no money has nothing to do with Amazon. It has everything to do with three men who bought the company in 2005 and made sure the cash would never stay. Charles Lazarus opened a baby furniture shop in Washington, D.C. in 1948. Veterans were coming home from the war. Families were forming. Cribs and high chairs were selling. But Lazarus noticed something. The parents buying furniture kept asking if he carried toys. By 1957, he'd scrapped the furniture entirely and gone all in on toys. Over the next 3 decades, he expanded relentlessly, buying out competitors, negotiating supplier deals no one else could match, and building a brand that American children associated with the purest form of want. By the time the 1980s ended, Charles Lazarus hadn't built a toy store. He'd built a destination. By the mid-1990s, Toys R Us controlled nearly 25% of the entire American toy market. 1 in every 4 toys sold in this country passed through one of their registers. That kind of market share doesn't just mean revenue, it means power. Toy manufacturers needed Toys R Us shelf space to survive. Major toy makers came to Toys R Us first. Geoffrey the Giraffe was as recognizable to American children as Mickey Mouse. Every birthday, every Christmas, the answer to what kids wanted started with 4 words. Take me there. Then the internet arrived, and the company made a decision that would haunt it forever. The year 2000. E-commerce was exploding and Toys R Us had no serious digital presence. Rather than build one, the company struck a deal with a fast-growing online platform called Amazon. Toys R Us would be the exclusive toy seller on the site. No infrastructure investment. No logistics risk. Amazon handles everything. Clean and simple. For 2 years it worked. Then Amazon quietly opened the platform to third-party toy sellers, violating the exclusivity agreement entirely. Toys R Us sued in 2004 and won. The court voided the contract. But the damage was done. For years of critical e-commerce development, years when Amazon was learning toy retail at scale, had been spent outsourcing the future instead of building it. Now the company was playing catch-up. And that's when the wolves arrived. July 2005. 3 of the most powerful private equity firms in the world, KKR, Bain Capital, and Vornado Realty Trust, announced the acquisition of Toys R Us for $6.6 billion. The headlines called it a rescue, a vote of confidence in a struggling retailer. 3 serious institutional investors backing an American icon. KKR had taken companies like RJR Nabisco to new heights. Bain Capital had a reputation for turnarounds. Vornado understood real estate at a level few could match. On paper, this looked like exactly what Toys R Us needed. What the press releases didn't explain, what they almost never explain, is how a leveraged buyout actually works. A leveraged buyout works like this. The acquiring firms contribute a fraction of the purchase price. In this case, roughly $1.3 billion of their own money. The remaining $5+ billion is borrowed from banks. Then that debt is transferred onto the balance sheet of the company being acquired. Toys R Us didn't receive $5 billion of fresh investment capital. Toys R Us received the $5 billion debt obligation and the annual interest payments that came with it. The PE firms had just purchased a $6.6 billion company for $1.3 billion and handed the bill to the company itself. Toys R Us was now responsible for financing its own acquisition. And that bill arrived every single year without exception. From 2005 onward, Toys R Us paid between $400 and $500 million every single year in interest alone. Not paying down the principal. Not investing in the business. Just servicing the interest on debt it had been handed. To understand what that meant in practice, Walmart was spending billions rebuilding its supply chain and launching e-commerce. Target was renovating stores and upgrading the shopping experience. Amazon was reinvesting every dollar of revenue into technology, logistics, and price competitiveness. Toys R Us was writing a $500 million check to creditors before a single shelf was restocked, before a single employee received a raise, before a single line of website code was written. The competitive gap wasn't closing. It was being engineered to widen. The interest payments were only part of the extraction. Between 2005 and 2017, KKR, Bain Capital, and Vornado Realty also collected approximately $470 million in management and advisory fees from Toys R Us. This is standard private equity practice. Firms charge annual management fees plus transaction fees, monitoring fees, and advisory fees. The company paying those fees doesn't choose to pay them. They're contractually obligated from the moment the acquisition closes. So while Toys R Us had no budget to build a website that could compete with Amazon, it was simultaneously cutting checks worth hundreds of millions to the three firms that had created the debt crisis in the first place. This was not negligence. This was the model. The PE firms had a solution to the debt problem: an IPO. Take Toys R Us public, raise fresh capital, pay down the debt, and give the company room to breathe. In 2010, they announced the IPO was coming. Market conditions weren't favorable. Canceled. In 2013, they tried again. The company's financials couldn't withstand analyst scrutiny. Canceled. In 2015, they filed the IPO paperwork for the third time. The numbers still didn't work. Canceled again. 3 attempts across 5 years, and each failure meant another year of $400 million interest payments, another year of falling behind competitors, another year of deteriorating stores. The window for a rescue was closing, and in the stores themselves, the consequences were already visible to anyone who walked in. Walk into a Toys R Us in 2012 and the decline was impossible to miss. Fluorescent lights flickering overhead. Checkout lines backed up with nowhere near enough staff to manage them. Store layouts unchanged since the late 1990s. No interactive displays, no modern aesthetics, no reason to linger. Prices running 10 to 20% higher than Walmart or Amazon because there was no cash to absorb a price war. Customer satisfaction surveys from 2010 through 2016 consistently ranked Toys R Us among the worst retail shopping experiences in the country. The chain that had defined American toy shopping was becoming something parents avoided. Not because the concept was broken, but because it had been systematically starved of the resources needed to maintain it. While Toys R Us stood still, the entire retail landscape was being rebuilt around it. Amazon's toy category grew from a niche convenience into the dominant force in the market. By 2015, Amazon had become the largest online toy retailer in the United States, a position that had belonged to Toys R Us not 15 years earlier. Walmart completed a billion-dollar e-commerce overhaul. Target redesigned its toy sections and launched same-day delivery. Every competitor that Toys R Us should have been racing against was instead pulling away from a company that couldn't run. The interest payments kept arriving. The fees kept flowing. And in the boardrooms on Park Avenue, the only remaining plan was the same one that had failed 3 times already. Early 2017. Toys R Us missed a critical debt repayment deadline. Word spread through supplier networks within weeks. Vendors who had been extending trade credit, allowing Toys R Us to receive inventory before paying for it, began pulling back. Some demanded cash upfront. Others slowed shipments. When suppliers lose confidence in a retailer, the shelves thin. When the shelves thin, customers stop coming. When customers stop coming, revenue falls. When revenue falls, suppliers lose more confidence. This is the retail death spiral, and once it starts, there is almost no stopping it without a massive injection of external capital. Toys R Us had no such capital. The money had been spent for 12 consecutive years on interest and fees. There was only one path remaining, and it led to a courthouse in Virginia. September 18, 2017. Toys R Us filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in the Eastern District of Virginia with $5.3 billion in outstanding debt. At the time, it was the largest retail bankruptcy filing in American history. Chapter 11 is supposed to be a restructuring, not a death sentence. The company would shed bad leases, renegotiate with suppliers, and emerge from the process leaner and viable. That was the plan. But as the proceedings moved forward, a different picture emerged. Liquidating the inventory and real estate was worth more to the creditors and the PE firms than rebuilding the business. The restructuring that was promised to employees and suppliers quietly became a liquidation. The largest toy store chain in the world was being disassembled and sold for parts. By June 29, 2018, every single one of the 735 remaining Toys R Us and Babies R Us stores in the United States had permanently closed. One by one, store by store, city by city, the lights went out and the signs came down. In some towns, the Toys R Us had been the anchor tenant that held an entire shopping mall together. When it closed, the surrounding stores followed. Small toy manufacturers who had built their entire distribution model around Toys R Us shelf placement went bankrupt alongside it. Jeffrey the Giraffe made a farewell tour on social media, drawing millions of comments from people mourning a piece of their childhood. What had taken Charles Lazarus 5 decades to build was gone in under a year. 33,000 Toys R Us employees lost their jobs when the stores closed. Under United States bankruptcy law, they were entitled to zero severance. After a wave of public outrage and testimony before the Senate Finance Committee, the PE firms contributed to a $20 million hardship fund, roughly $606 for each displaced worker. Meanwhile, KKR, Bain Capital, and Vornado Realty Trust had collected $470 million in management fees over 12 years and exited the bankruptcy proceedings with their personal liability intact. The legal structures of private equity insulate the acquiring firms from the consequences of the debt they place on their acquisitions. The cashiers, the stockroom workers, the store managers, they had no such protection. They had $600 and a final paycheck. Toys R Us didn't die because children stopped wanting toys. It didn't die because Amazon was simply more innovative. A business carrying $5 billion in debt and $400 million in annual interest payments cannot compete with anyone, regardless of how good its management is or how beloved its brand. The Toys R Us story is not a retail story. It's a story about what private equity does to companies when extraction replaces stewardship. The brand still exists. A handful of small shops opened inside Macy's locations starting in 2019. A ghost of the $11 billion empire it once was. The stories that shape our economy rarely make the news the way they should. If you want more of them, subscribe. There's a new one every week.